Good evening, Winchester. Hello, Winchester. Welcome to Visual Radio Live, the final Thursday of February 2013. 2 months have already elapsed in 2013. Amazing, isn't it? 10 months left to go in this year. It's an election year this year, as was last year, but this is local elections. Will Mayor Tom Menino stay in? Amazing, his opponent, Connolly, is saying wonderful things about Mayor Menino, who was on this show. Our colleague Joe Tortelli interviewed Mayor Menino. I did the camera work. We were at Government Center on location, and that was a lot of fun. Great guy, and he's done a lot for the city of Boston. Who knows how the wheel will turn on November 5th, 2013. Anyway, a lot to cover tonight. My guest, Kate Genovese, had a show to go to, and we're booked in the next few weeks. In fact, next week we have the return of Matt Gallagher. You might remember Joe LaRocca and I interviewed Matt Gallagher on his book on the Iraq and Afghanistan war. Now they have a new book out, edited by Roy Scranton and Matt Gallagher, and Roy and Matt will both be here next week from today, March 7th. Fire and Forget, short stories from the Long War. So this is, again, DeCapo Press. Our good friends at DeCapo, we haven't interviewed a DeCapo author in a while. It's like, I think they had like national other books, and now their authors are touring again here in Boston because Gerald Shea will be here on March 28th. Song Without Words, Discovering My Deafness Halfway Through Life. It's going to be an interesting guest. You heard that right. Discovering My Deafness Halfway Through Life, and we'll be interviewing this man. We're going to find out about his journey. I don't know if he reads lips, if he can hear. I don't know. I haven't touched the book yet because I have been reading a 600-page book, which I've done a very good job of reading. The Soundtrack of My Life, Clive Davis, second book by Clive Davis. The first one, I've read the first one, and it's called Clive Inside the Record Business with James Wilworth, of course. How could I forget? Now, in Clive, he talks about Genya Raven, one of our guests, who's on tour right now. We just got an email from her today. The Rowan brothers, and there's another act, and they're missing from the 600-page book, which I find fascinating. There's so much Clive has covered. So Clive, the Soundtrack of My Life. It'll be wonderful if we get to talk to Clive. Clive certainly has done amazing things. If time permits, we will. If Clive's time permits, we will be talking to Clive Davis. Nice guy. He's been in touch with us over the years. He wrote a nice letter to the late Jimmy Miller about JoJo Lane, my dear friend. We went into the studio, and Clive was the first music industry executive to hear JoJo's tapes. When I worked with Andy Pratt back in 2004, he wrote us a beautiful letter. Wanted to hear Andy's stuff because he had signed Andy Pratt. He had worked with many of the people that Jimmy Miller and JoJo Lane knew. So good to see this book out. It's controversial, of course, but it's very well written. And here's another nugget for you all. With Anthony DeCurtis, a guest of Visual Radio, as you know. We talked to Anthony, 6 months, a year ago. We'll be talking to John Byers, of course. We'll be talking to not Anthony DeCurtis, Frank Dello Stritto. Kate Genovese was going to be on. She hosts Table Talk. I want her here, so we'll do another Table Talk right here. Thanks to Bob Hildeberg for being here last week. We get mail. At the old P.O. Box up in Woburn. Okay. This is from WJIB AM 740. Also, WJTO Radio 730, Coastal Maine, the Memory Stations. Hi, Joe. Thanks for thinking of me regarding the record meet. Now, these are the record meets that are 5 times a year out in Dedham. I never get to those anymore. I live in Maine now, working hard on putting 13,000 songs in the new computer, mostly from the 50,000 plus LPs listeners have donated to both stations. Best wishes, Bob. Easy as the breeze in Boston. Bob Bittner Broadcasting. Bob Bittner, great guy. I was a DJ on AM 740 in 2000 when I was programming Alston Brighton Free Radio, AM 1670. Bob allowed us to go in on Saturday nights. We do like a 3 to 5 hour block. God bless him. And we had Lou Reed on the air. We had Richard Paul Evans of the Christmas box on AM 740. So that was 13 years ago, but great to get a postcard. I just sent Bob an email about the record meet. It's the original New England Compact Disc and Record Expo. Now, Bob Bidner and one of our other guests, Donna Halper, have an open invitation, and I'm going to re-invite them to come on to Visual Radio because they did something on JIB called, oh man, it's tough getting older, okay? They had a Sunday morning show, Let's Talk About Radio. It comes back, Let's Talk About Radio. Let's talk about Visual Radio. We'll have them on Visual Radio at some point, so I'm going to keep sending invitations out. Okay, public access television, very important. So once again, I spoke at the City Council of Medford on Tuesday night. Got a nice shave. Thank you, Dentes. Got a nice shave, put my suit on, thanks to the cleaners up there in Washington Street. And no, I'm just thanking people. All I'm doing is thanking people because I pay for all that stuff, cash. So I just want to say thank you to people. That's just a good, nice thing to do. But I go up to the city council and I'm talking about the fact that a public access station next door is literally underwater. So there's no information for the public. And as you know, Winchester residents, all of you fund Access TV so that we can do this. So this is funny. It's sad and funny. I was professional and on topic. So I said, I went to the Board of Health per request of one of the city councilors. So I'm interrupted immediately by the alleged president of the City Council of Medford. Are you saying you wrote a report for the Board of Health? I said, sir, I said nothing of the sort, and you know that. I'll repeat what I said. I had the script. The script's right here. So I repeated what I said. Now, he did that intentionally because he had called the Board of Health knowing that I had gone there. Talk about not being proactive. The City Council president only went to the Board of Health knowing I had it on the agenda. And I'll be writing a little report on him because I'm not paid as a counselor. I'm just a citizen. They're getting minimum $525 a week, which comes out to about $3,700. You heard that right. In Medford, next door, they get $3,700 a week. So they took a school vacation day off on the 12th. No, the 19th. 12th was truncated. So I said, you guys got 11 grand for 3 weeks, $11,000. Think about it. That's why they interrupt me. They do not want the public knowing how much money they're making weekly, monthly, every 3 weeks, 11 grand. Okay, so now I give my speech. It's very good. And I'm not saying that. People call me and said, very good speech, Joe. And I say, thank you. So the nephew of the council president, you getting a picture here? He interrupts me and starts interrogating. And I had all the answers for him, put him right in his place, so he wilted away. Then the third counselor of what we call the McGlynn Three, the mayor owns these three. He starts talking about Emily Rooney on Channel 2 saying how Access is going to go away. Now, legitimately, I should have been able to refute what he said because Access is not going away. But this is how they play the game, working in concert with the mayor, not caring about the citizens who are paying into this because these guys get on TV and promote themselves at election time. So, this Tuesday night, I'm going to be in Boston. The Wizard of Oz, the Oz the Great and Powerful, the new movie. I am going to see the preview. I'll have a review up on Thursday night next week, right after the show. The reviews can blast at midnight on Thursday before the movie's out for the general public. But there's probably going to be a radio station giveaway, so hunt and peck out there. you might be able to come to the Critic screening. It's a Critic screening, so they'll have like 2 or 3 or 4 rows for critics, and we get to sit in those rows if we want, or if we get there early, I like to sit up front. You can take any seat you want, but when there's radio promos, and this movie's getting a good buzz already, and they're doing commercials, so it's getting the buzz because it's Oz. You know, and before I make our first phone call, in fact, I'm going to talk to the call. We'll talk to the caller about this, because I'm going to talk about the Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz. Well, our caller.
Hello?
Hey, John.
What's up?
I'm in the middle of the Wizard of Oz. Did you? Were you watching the show?
Yes, I was.
So I wanted to bring you in on this. You know, my niece is almost your age now, but when she was younger, when she was like 8 or 9, I took her to see the Disney Dorothy of Oz. Did you know there was another Oz movie from Disney?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they did a really good movie, and she got really scared during the movie. I thought it was great, and I was really into it. So there's this Dorothy of Oz that Disney did.
Yep.
And I never realized, I mean, I could never understand why Disney didn't keep up the Oz thing, Johnny. Such a perfect thing for Disney, don't you think?
It is, but remember, Disney is kid-related, and The Wizard of Oz is a kid's movie, but then again, it's more of a somewhat of a darker version of a kid's movie.
Yeah, but Harry Potter was as well, and how many kids just really absorbed Harry Potter?
But again, that started out as a book, just like The Wizard of Oz did. But I mean, look, all we gotta do is look at the Batman thing. How many different movies? Batman was always, to me, I knew him as a superhero, and then over the years, he's become this Dark Knight character that I was never aware of at the time. Probably because in the 70s, all I remember about Batman was the Saturday morning Super Friends shows, and then the series.
Now, John.
Adam West.
Okay, so let's go to this. The guy in Oz, did you see Planet of the Apes, Rise of the Planet of the Apes?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so it's the fellow who was in that, and he was in Spiderman. He was Harry Osborn. I don't know why I'm blanking out. I'm the film critic, but I think he's the Wizard of Oz in this. And this is about the wizard going to from Kansas in a tornado, lands in Oz, and has to battle 3 witches. And one is Rachel Weisz, who's just an amazing actress. She's really stuck it out, and she's one of the witches. So she should be delicious as a witch.
Right.
How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I mean, of course, we know that the Red Sox are in spring training right now. They won a nice game today, 16-5.
Is that 2 in a row?
I know they lost last night to the Orioles.
But they did win. Didn't a guy get 2 scoreless innings?
Yes.
Was that last night?
Yeah, that was last night, but then it fell apart.
Oh, okay.
But the bats exploded today against the Pirates, and they beat them, and now they're back in Fort Myers, and they play tomorrow night again. And who do they play? The Pittsburgh Pirates. So maybe we get 2 in a row against the Pirates before we get the Yankees on Sunday.
Well, today, Johnny, I mailed out copies of the DVD to CCTV in Cambridge. My membership expires on the 17th of March. I sent them the money in already, so I'm re-upped as a member of CCTV. I sent it out to Wakefield because I didn't feel like driving out to Wakefield.
Right.
So I've got Nelson Slater, and I've got 2 shows that are going out. Nelson Slater and Air Traffic Controller, Dave Monroe. Got them out to Monson and Palmer, Boston Neighborhood Network, Stoneham, Windcam, of course, Cambridge, Wakefield. Got to get them out to Winthrop, Burlington, Malden, Somerville. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yep.
Billerica. So we got all these stations all over the place that I have to service with these DVDs. New York, have to get new ones to New York.
Right.
There's a lot of work doing access. So when we get our Medford station, and you know that I wrote to the mayor today. Did you get the letter?
Yes, she sent it to me via email.
All right, so we're not going to talk about the other parties, other than there's no station there since mid-December. Would you say?
Even before that, they last did a regularly scheduled show a week before Christmas.
Okay, so a week before Christmas was what? Was it Ziggy Bush?
Yeah.
All right, so Ziggy Bush show aired week before Christmas, and now it is March 1st, tomorrow. And it's been very interesting because now we're talking over 2 months, going to 3 months.
Yep.
I spoke at the council, as I told the audience, and I'm going to the mayor, and I'm going to keep on the mayor because this is money that we're paying in. You have a cable bill, right?
Yes, I do.
So you're paying into this cable thing.
Correct.
And we can't opt out of it. We have to pay for it. Project Open Voice, John, might last only another 18 months. Could you do us a favor? I'm going to ask you a favor. Don't say yes until you hear me out. You're good friends with Freddie Delarusso Jr.?
Yes, I am.
I'd love you to call him for me tomorrow and say, Freddie, you talked at the council about MLE Rooney talking about access going away. That's not accurate. The whole thing's going to the computer. 4, 5, and 7, all the channels, whether they're access or national, they're all going to go to the web.
Right.
That's why Netflix and Blockbuster and all these companies are coming up with content. You know, Redbox, is it Redbox at the grocery stores?
Redbox.
They're coming up with content. I think Kevin Spacey's doing a series for them.
Yeah, he is.
And I believe Yahoo's doing series. So now I can actually approach Yahoo and Redbox and Netflix about picking up visual radio as a show other than Access. Of course, I'd love to keep doing the Access.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
What do you think of that? Could you imagine Johnny Byers Sports on Yahoo?
I think that would be interesting, but the big thing to look at, too, as far as that goes, is that that would only be on the internet, and for me, I need to be having two-way talk with the people, which means I need to be taking phone calls, or else I can't carry a show on my own. That's the whole idea of why I was doing sports talk.
Well, I'm sure you could carry a show on your own, but you're more comfortable having guests.
Guests and talking to people, because I want to have the people let them have their say in the different topics that we talk about, and I don't discriminate against them. I allow them to have their say, and if they want to have their say and disagree with me, then by all means. If they don't disagree with me, by all means. I mean, it's just that's the way I choose to do a show, and I've picked that up from listening to the talk shows on the radio, and that's the way I like to do a show.
And you do a good job.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is I want to develop a brand new station in Medford that is owned and operated by a whole new company.
Right.
So that's what I'm lobbying the mayor to do. And I'm quite confident we're going to have that reality because, you know, I can say this. Judge Jackson Thompson, who lives in Woburn, she used to live in Medford, the Honorable Judge Mario Jackson Thompson said that they're operating a private access station. Remember what Joe Fortunato said?
Public-private access.
So Joe Fortunato said public-private access. The judge ruled they're running a private MCC access. This is in her report. And that's not what access is. It's not private.
No, I know that.
And since the judge ruled, and the mayor has not spoken on it. Now, the city council is writing a letter because I urged them to.
Right.
And you notice what I also did? I said, I want you to vote. I wanted to vote, so they had to vote on my my motion. But they were very funny how they voted. Don't you find it odd that Councilor Mayako went to the Board of Health only after I did?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, we know, at least I know how politics works in Medford, and as soon as they get a hint that someone's going to bring it up, they cover their bases and say, "Oh yeah, we knew about it. This is no shock to us that you're bringing it up." But I mean, it's their way of covering their mistakes, so that they can get reelected the next time around. Because again, it's an election year here in Medford, and they're up for reelection. And as we've talked about off the year, there could be some change. We believe in certain offices here in the city, particularly in the city council, where at least one or two people must.
John, I think there's going to be a big change. I think there's going to be a big change. I can just feel it in the wind.
Well, hopefully you're right, Joe. I mean, the biggest change we need here in the city is in the front office of the city, which is.
We need a new mayor. He's been in 26 years. We need a new mayor.
Oh, 24 years. It will be 26 years.
24. You're right.
If he gets reelected this next term around.
All right. So 24 years he's been in.
Right.
I think it's 20. Okay, 24. You're right.
86.
Huh?
86 he got in, and this is now 2013.
Yeah. So.
Actually, technically, he was elected in 85, but took office in 86. He was inaugurated in 86.
So, in 86, so that would make this like the 27th year.
Well, remember, now, we're having a municipal election this year.
Yeah, but he's been in 26 years, John.
Right, yeah.
86 to 2013 is 26 going on 27 years.
Okay.
I was right.
Okay.
26 years is way too long. Now, the second thing we need is a new charter.
Yeah.
And
people don't. What it took, and I'll go back to when they changed the charter originally. It took a bunch of people to go out and get signatures and get that charter changed, and that you also have to know what type of a government you want. There are many types and forms of government that are out there. Plan E would not suffice here in Medford. That's why we switched to Plan A. Plan A has failed, so now we need to find a government that basically, and if you excuse what I'm going to say here, but basically what it comes down to, and I know your city, Winchester city government is different than Medford's, but every week there seems to be a pissing match between the city council of Medford and the mayor, and nothing ever gets done.
But that match is irrelevant, because what happens is he does horse trading.
Correct.
Now, one of the councilors that I liked said to me after the council meeting, "You said I'm on the take." I said, "What? What?" I made a joke. I mean, these guys are so thin-skinned. They're the elected officials getting $525 a week minimum, and you can't even crack a joke. I'm saying that they're horse trading. They are horse trading. That's not someone's on the take. That's a quid pro quo.
Right, but here's the thing, though. If this wasn't an election, remember, this is an election year.
So they're so touchy. And my point is, if you can't take it, resign. If you can't take it, resign.
Last year, you wouldn't have gotten the backlash that you got, because again, that particular guy is up for re-election, and any influence of him being on the take could hurt him.
Yeah, but I never implied it.
No,
it was a board member of you-know-where, someone who doesn't call you anymore. You know exactly who took it out of all context and blew it up just to aggravate him.
Yeah.
Okay? So someone aggravated him, and he didn't like it, and it's like, hey, you know?
And this someone, just to show you, told me at the beginning of this year that he didn't expect that particular counselor, in his words, to last the year. He was either going to resign or die in office.
Oh, I'm going to write that tonight.
He would have a massive heart attack and die
oh, John,
in front of the cameras.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Okay, so that individual that said those things, the city councilor said, "That lunatic." That's what the councilor said about that individual.
And I wonder what that councilor would think of what he said about him.
Well, he'll find out tonight in the email, but I want to thank our Winchester residents for the way they have town meetings. I love how Winchester has town meetings with hundreds of people there, vigorous debate, lots of interaction, and that's the way it should be. Now, Jean Martin has a wonderful article on Patch today, Johnny,
right,
where she says to someone, you know, it's the people's fault. She's saying the people don't come out, and they're getting the government they deserve. So the person writes back to Jean and says something like, No, that's not fair, because that old man who brought the rocks to the city council, and I think he meant Pat Fiorello,
Yeah.
they used to be dismissive to him. They're dismissive to women. They scare people away. And Gene wrote back.
Oh, let me just stop you for 1 second, because you got to remember, it takes a major hot button issue to bring people out.
And you're right.
What happened with Dirty Talk Live? There was one, and then years ago we had the debate for 3 straight weeks about a methadone clinic going into the city, and then all of a sudden, the fourth week that it was going to be talked about, His Eminence, the mayor, comes in with his head tucked between his legs and says he gave the money back and they won't be coming in.
But he also just gave a lecture and ran out. He didn't take any questions, correct?
Yeah, and then what do we find out years later? Just late last year, we found out that in fact that methadone clinic was allowed to come into Medford after everything calmed down. Although we don't know where it is, we do know it's in Medford. And so what the
Well, it's easy enough to find.
What?
It's easy enough to find, but...
So what I'm saying is it takes major hot-button issues to get the citizens riled up enough to come.
And that's Gene's point. Gene's point is it shouldn't. It shouldn't be a hot-button issue. If you've got 56,000 people, one person should show up even once a month, she said. So if you're a busy mother, a busy father, take a Tuesday off and show up, and we should have a revolving door of people. And she's right, 100 people should be there every week. Now, I've tried my best, writing to the patch, speaking at the council, I've written to people personally, and they promise to come, they never show up. Now, that's their fault.
Yeah.
So Gene has a point. Without public participation, you can't, she said the council would never dress someone down if there were 100 people in the room. Just like when I went to the Medford Housing Authority this Monday, and Jean Martin had her camera there, it keeps them honest.
Yeah.
It keeps them honest when there's a camera rolling or there's a lot of people in the room.
Or when there's 2 cameras rolling.
Well, I think there were 3, but that's beside,
Okay.
That's the good thing. Now people are getting hip. And gee, John, who do you think's been teaching people how to do this?
You.
Thank you. I went to the DTC in Boston with the camera.
Well, we've got to remember, too, and I'll take you back. Here in Medford, when we got Verizon in the city, the mayor had this big press conference, and you showed up there with a camera. If you hadn't showed up there with the camera but asked them a question, more than likely, that question would have not made it to air. It would have been edited out because the mayor doesn't want you getting any traction in the city.
Well, he doesn't want, he doesn't want opposing opinions, not just me. And that's a very important stipulation here. The city councilor Camuso tried to make it all about me. He tried to change my lecture to me being the troublemaker or the muckraker, and I put him right in his place. I said, sir.
You did, yes. I watched that. I mean, basically...
I said, sir, there's many people here, many voices, not just me. And once you keep pounding that fact home, they can't get away with their nonsense.
He doesn't care to hear about it unless it's going to affect him directly in the way...
He whimpered away and got into his little cave. But to close up on this, I'm going to tell you, there's a couple of meetings next week on Monday. In Somerville, and this affects Winchester, in Somerville, there's going to be a Green Line meeting at St. Clement's Church. That's where I went to school,
Yep.
grades 1, 2, and 3, St. Clement's. It's on the Medford-Somerville line, and in the auditorium, in the gymnasium, they're going to have a Green Line meeting on the Tuesday, the 5th. On Wednesday, the 6th, there are 2 meetings, John, on Wednesday, the 6th. At 5:30 at the Century Bank, Richard Davies of the MBTA is talking at 5:30, and at 6 o'clock, the mayor is at City Hall giving a State of the City address. Now, John, why would he have the State of the City address when the head of the MBTA, the head guy above the mayor's brother-in-law, is speaking at the Century Bank for 2 hours, starting at 5:30? Isn't that odd?
Oh, yeah, it's very odd, but that's the way politics is here in Medford.
Now, the mayor knows the Century Bank people.
Yep.
He got that alert. And he certainly knows Richard Davies because his brother, Jonathan Davis, his brother-in-law,
Yep.
works for Davy. So they intentionally have these two meetings. You either go to the MBTA meeting at the Century Bank, which everyone in Winchester is welcome to go do, because it's the MBTA. It affects Winchester, it affects Medford, it affects Somerville.
Well, what's more important to the public?
Well, to the Medford public, it's seeing the mayor.
That's
to
right.
Winchester, if I were in Winchester, I'd go to the Somerville meeting on the MBTA, then I'd go to the Medford meeting on the MBTA the next night, because that affects Winchester.
Right. What I'm talking about is generally Medford. What's more important, the MBTA or the state of the city?
Well, this guy hasn't given a State of the City address that's free. He charged for one at the Century Bank back in October. This is the first free one in 10 or 11 years. What do you think of that?
Well, again, how does he make his money, some of his money to run? He charges for certain events. It's sort of like the big flap that's going on in D.C. right now with the pay to meet the president thing. Spends quality time with the president.
Well, that's been going on forever.
On a lower end, it costs less to see the mayor, and it shouldn't be costing anything to see the mayor, but that's what the mayor wants. If I were the mayor, everything would be free. Anyone wants to come to me, they can call me up, they can contact me by email, they can come to my office. My office would always be open.
Well, Johnny, in conclusion, because I got to talk to Frank Dello Stritto, are you running for mayor?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
You're the first candidate to announce, because even McGlynn hasn't announced.
McGlynn hasn't announced yet, but I'm sure he will be announcing something very soon because it's too close to him getting things set up so he can set up so that he can have people convinced not to run against him so he can run unopposed. But that won't happen because there'll be at least one person that is going to run, and that will be me.
I think a city council is going to run, and I heard...
We'll see about that. And, of course, with me having the radio stations behind me in Boston, and I have to remember that you called up one time on the Weiner line, and would you like to tell
No, I don't think we should go there. But, John, you can hear John from Medford on 98.5 and 93.7. John, always a pleasure.
I will talk to you.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
John Byers, running for mayor of Medford. He's the only candidate announced so far. All right, we're going to talk to Frank Dello Stritto. And now, I've been dialing this number for over a year, more like 2 years. In the old days, I remembered phone numbers. Now I remember email addresses. It's just...
Yo, Frank Dello Stritto talking about movies.
You know, Frank, back in the old days, I would remember phone numbers. Now I remember emails. So for 2 years, I've been dialing your number. I still don't have it memorized.
Okay, well, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's times change. Now I remember email addresses.
Yes, and memory is a precious asset, so don't waste it on things you don't need to.
And I won't say your email address over the air, but when's the next book coming out?
The next book is coming out, well, for the last 5 years I've been saying it's coming out next year, but since I'm retiring in March, I'll finally have time to finish it, so it's coming out in 2014.
Can we ask the retirement date?
Retirement date is Friday, March 29th.
We're going to have a virtual cake for you on the 28th.
Well, good. I like virtual cake because I can eat a second helping without feeling guilty.
No calories.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, I want you to be psychic. What mystical movie am I going to see on Tuesday night?
What Mister?
It's going to be a big, big movie.
Oh, what movie?
Yeah. Disney.
Exorcism Part 2.
No, this is going to be The Great and Wonderful Oz.
Oh, okay.
Oh, The Great and Powerful Oz?
I think it's The Great and Wonderful, but I couldn't tell you.
So this is the prequel. And answer me this. Did you see the Disney movie on Oz, Dorothy or something from Oz, back in the 70s or 80s? 80s.
I did not.
I did. And it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And why wouldn't Disney continue? You know, they spend billions on Marvel Comics, and they spent billions on another, Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it have been prudent to pick up the L. Frank Baum books for free?
Yeah. Disney did Star Wars? He had money on that?
Disney now is doing Star Wars.
Oh, is he?
They just bought it.
Okay, so you're up on these things. I don't get it. Once things are in the private domain, I don't follow them anymore.
Okay, so Star Wars, George Lucas said no more movies. Disney gave him billions. They're now going to do the follow-up to Star Wars number 6, which will be 7, technically, but it will really be the 4th, even though it's it'll be the 7th filmed, but it's
Any of the original cast back.
Yeah, Harrison Ford is rumored to be coming back, which means we'll have Carrie Fisher and we'll have Mark Hamill.
Okay, I hope so.
They'll all be older, and I guess it'll be the children of Han Solo and the lovely Princess Leia.
Okay, I'm glad they had kids. It was a troubled relationship, so I'm glad they lasted long enough to have a good family.
Yeah, and you never know. In this day and age, Luke could have run off with Harrison Ford.
Now, my opinion of the Star Wars movies, in the order they were made, is a great movie, a good movie, a lousy movie, a really lousy movie, a surprisingly good movie, and by the time I got to Chapter 3, I had already seen Chapters 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, so there was no surprises in there, but I will give them credit. I thought the sword fight on the Sea of Lava was breathtaking.
I was so disappointed in the Darth Vader character. Hans, what's his name?
Anakin Skywalker?
Yeah, but whoever the actor is, Hayden Christensen.
Yeah. I agree with you. You never saw. I mean, you look for. You needed someone who you saw Darth Vader inside getting out someday, and you never saw that.
Thank you.
And physically, I mean, he was just. I mean, Darth Vader should have been a full-bodied, an alpha, full-bodied alpha male, not a fat guy, but a muscular guy or a thicker torso. He didn't invoke anything that you thought of about Darth Vader.
The malevolence, and he was such a bad actor in it. Now, have you seen the movie Jumper?
Jumper, I think which one is that?
Hayden Christensen's in it. He's surprisingly very, very good. So the kid can act.
I saw him in that movie about the heart transplants. I forget the name, and I thought he was fine in that.
A jumper is kind of like the time traveler's wife, only they don't travel through time, they travel through space. So he jumps from here to India, here to Europe, so they can jump, and they're being chased by, the government, anti-jumpers, kind of like the Marvel Comics X-Men, So, but he's very, very good in it, and I'm like, wow. Of course, when you do 3 Star Wars movies, or 2, whatever he did, you learn how to act on the spot.
Well, you got to remember, acting is a craft you learn and get better at, like so many other crafts. And so we were seeing him early in his career, and it doesn't mean he's going to be the same kind of actor, and hopefully be a better actor as he matures.
Right. I love your wisdom and philosophy. You really have a good aspect on it.
Well, you never know when you're going to make an enemy for life, so I try to give everybody a break. They really got to cross me to get the total bad out of me.
So I'm just surprised at Disney for not exploring the Oz brand since it was available, and Judy Garland's classic is just so, wonderfully iconic.
So first of all, you were right. It's Oz the Great and Powerful, not wonderful. And is that a Disney movie?
I believe it is.
Okay. Well, maybe this is they're seeing if it works.
Well, it's the second one because they did the. Are you on IMDb?
I'm at the moment, yes.
All right, so look up. Disney did an Oz movie. You just put Oz in it, I guess, and you'll see the movie they did in the 80s.
Okay, there is Return to Oz.
Return to Oz.
Okay, that's Disney. Of course, the 80s were a difficult period. It took Disney Disney the company a long time to recover from the death of Disney the man. And the 80s, they were not quite hitting their stride yet. So I haven't seen this movie, but when I think of Disney in the 80s, I think of a studio just coming back into focus. They're just starting to get their act together again.
So who's in the Return to Oz, and what year is it?
Right, let's see. Database says 1985. It has got Fairuza. I never learned how to say her name. Fairuza Balk, who I always had high opinion of an actress. I guess she plays Dorothy. Nicole Williamson must play Oz. Yeah, he plays, even though he plays Dr. Worley, the Norm King. And Piper Laurie is in it as Auntie M. And Gene Marsh from Upstairs Downstairs is in it. That's the last of the names that anybody but the dedicated would remember.
I hope it piqued your interest, and we played all the Oz movies that L. Frank Baum did back in the early days, The Silence. We've played them here on WinCam.
And let's see, does that include the one with Oliver Hardy as I think the Tin Man he plays?
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've seen that. That's a silent Oz movie, and you would not know it was a Frank L. Baum story if they hadn't put it in the credits, because they use the characters, but the plot has zero to do with the books. So.
Yeah, I think they were really weren't aware of how to really put it to the screen, but it's nice that we have them, and I think there's 4 of them in a box set you can get.
These are silent movies?
Yep.
All right.
And they're worth pursuing. You can find them like at the dollar stores, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I got a book in my hand. Rod Serling, The Dreams and Nightmares of Life in the Twilight Zone. A Joel Engel biography. I get these at the book fairs, you know, pretty much free. You buy a bag of books for $4. Disney could have picked up the Twilight Zone. That would have been fun.
Yeah, I guess the Twilight Zone, the movie, did not do all that well. I'm trying to remember back. That was in the 80s.
Well, it had that horrible death of the character actor.
Yeah, Vic Morrow died in it.
And another person did as well.
Well, the two, Vic Morrow and the 2 children acted in that, right?
Oh.
Incidentally, Oliver Hardy played the Tin Woodsman in a 1925 Wizard of Oz. I saw that movie long ago, but all I remember of it really is that this has nothing to do with the Frank L. Baum story. You would not think it was the same. It is not the same plot as the 1939 movie.
And who was the director of the 1925 one?
Let me get that up here. Somebody we've never... Oh, Larry Seaman, who was I think he was a Keystone Cop, but he was a silent comic. So I didn't know he'd done any directing, but he directed this. And let's see, I'm looking down the cast list. And other than Oliver Hardy, you're not going to recognize the name. Oh, and Larry Seaman also played the Scarecrow.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So directed himself, but I don't remember the Scarecrow, but I don't remember the movie being much to write home about.
So that's the Oz catalog, people. It's 8:42. We have a good, we've got 17 minutes, so that's fine. I'm psyched about the Oz thing. I'm glad that they're bringing Oz back to the forefront. It will bring new interest from the new generation.
I hope so, and I hope they're inspired to read the books. I think Frank L. Oh God, I'm thinking back so far since I've read the books, but I remember I think there's 12 in the series, and the first 6 are really fine, and then it's kind of a rehash, but. Certainly start reading them in sequence, and you're in for a delight. And just to whet people's appetite, the Cowardly Lion is not so cowardly. In the book, he goes off at night and gets himself a live dinner and comes back. So he's cowardly with the big animals, but he has no trouble with the small ones, like Burt Lahr did in the movie.
Interesting.
Maybe you will have an Oz festival someday on our show, and we can talk about the movies more.
We will. In fact, we'll talk. I'm going to get you my schedule because I have a lot of people coming in the next few weeks, book authors. But when we can fit in another 20 minutes, it's always fun to talk with you. I want to ask your opinion of the Oscars.
I got to say, there was nothing I really got excited about in the movies in 2012. They were all good movies. I mean, I liked Argo. I didn't think it was great. I thought it was good. I liked Lincoln. I didn't think it was great. I thought it was good. I was really blown away by Life of Pi until at the very end. And if you haven't seen the movie and intend to, cover your ears. At the very end, the main character basically says, "Oh, this wasn't true. I made this all up." And my wife says, "That's not what he said." And I go, "Yeah, but that's what he said." That really upset me because I thought it was a fantastic story. But my rating of it dropped a point or two at the last few minutes.
And what did Ang Lee get for that? What award?
He got Best Director.
Best Director. Well, good for him. I don't like what he did with Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Eric Bana was great as Dr. Bruce Banner, using the same name, the guy with the same name, and I did not like Edward Norton as Bruce Banner. And again, the poor Hulk has been knocked around on TV and on movies. He's never really had his due.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess he's got it in the Avengers, and of course they put Mark Ruffalo in, who wasn't bad. But they should have brought Eric Bana back.
You're touching on a point. I think when the Oscar voting comes, it's very hard to separate the performance or the directing or whatever you're nominated for and on a particular picture from the rest of your career. And I got in an argument with this with somebody else. Like Daniel Day-Lewis has got his third best actor. Gee, why didn't they give it to someone else? And I can see that argument, but in the end, you got to try and say, okay, who gave the best performance this year? And sometimes making it even harder than that is when you're trying to compare one performance to another. You're comparing an apple to an orange. It's very hard to compare a dramatic performance to a performance that is a bit over the top to one that is comedic, and you got to say, well, which was the best performance? It's not easy to do.
And you know what? I'll put my 2 cents in here on Denzel Washington.
Mm-hmm.
We interviewed Robert Zemeckis for Flight.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the only film that that I really liked that had any nomination or anything. So I just didn't think it was Denzel's best performance, and I thought, they're giving him the nomination because he's such a great actor. And the clip they showed was phenomenal. Him at that hearing, you could see what a great actor he is during that clip. But throughout the movie, he's playing a drunk, a dry drunk, and then a drunk, and I don't think he pulled it off. I think he was, as you said, over the top. And it wasn't Denzel as Denzel can really be. So I didn't think he deserved Best Actor for it.
I would not have. I can't. I got to say, anybody that was nominated of the movies and the performances I saw, any one of them that won, I wouldn't have been upset by. Some years, you just want to pound on the TV and say, how could you pick this movie over that movie?
Right. Denzel did enough great stuff in it to have. You could have said, okay, fine.
And but let me say one thing about Django Unchained, which is a movie I like very much. But to anybody that's listening, you have to assess your threshold of violence and brutality, because there's plenty of it in that movie. Not as much as I was prepared for, but it's the only reason I hesitate to recommend the movie. But Christopher Waltz was fine. It was better than fine. He was very good, and he deserves an Oscar. But the performance in there that blew me away was Samuel L. Jackson. And if he had come into the film earlier, I think he might have been getting the award instead of Christopher Waltz, because his role is not one half the size of Waltz's. But I thought every scene he just nailed, and that was for me that was the most exciting performance of the year, maybe.
What did Quentin Tarantino get it for?
He got it for the best original screenplay, or best
Okay.
screenplay, I guess.
Yeah, and then Ben Affleck got Best Picture, right?
Ben Affleck. That was one of the big stories of the Oscar season. Ben Affleck was not nominated for Best Director, though he won several other Best Director awards in the industry. But he was not nominated, so he couldn't win that. So he was as a producer of the movie, he got an Oscar as producer, but not as director.
Poor baby, I'm crying for him.
Well, let me say this. 10 years ago, I had written Ben Affleck off. He was a pretty boy who made lightweight movies, and that's all he was going. And then he made The Town about the Boston bank robbers.
Yep.
And he wrote it, he acted in it, and he directed it, and I thought he was great in all of them. And then I don't think Argo is the equal of The Town, but it's a very good film, and I have no trouble getting best. So here's a guy that, as far as quality, I think came back from the dead. So my hat is off to him.
And what I've said before is, do you know that they used to show to aspiring actors Rock Hudson's screen test because it was one of the worst in history? So they would show it to aspiring actors to show what a great actor you could become with such a horrible screen test. And we all know he was even a finer actor than anyone ever realized, hiding his real life in real life.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah. His best performance was his life, right?
Yeah. Maybe Doris Day, too. All this stuff is coming to the surface. So acting is a craft, and you said it earlier about Hayden Christensen, and you're right. What is our movie for tomorrow night?
Our movie for tomorrow night is Secret Agent. It's a continuing of your Alfred Hitchcock series. And I caught some grief last week from some of your listeners. I just didn't tell them where the Hitchcock cameo was in Sabotage. So there is no known Hitchcock cameo in Secret Agent. He's not in there to be seen.
What, did you get a email or something?
Yep.
Okay.
My email is not that hard to find. I'm trying to sell books and all that, and you can get me one way or the other. It's not that hard to get me.
So do you know who wrote you?
It didn't have a human name on it. People have monikers on it, so no, I don't.
Yeah. Okay.
If I did, I probably wouldn't say it on the air anyway.
All right.
If they want to be on the air, they have to send an email to you.
All right.
And for people that are watching the movie that you're showing tomorrow night, Sabotage, which we talked about briefly last week, Hitchcock appears about 9 minutes into it. There's a power outage in London. When the lights come out outside the box office, you'll see him on the left-hand side of the screen. So personally, it doesn't look that much like me to me. It doesn't look that much like him. But this might have been a period where he was losing a lot of weight because he was really enormous compared to the man we usually envision. So maybe he was slimming down or whatever. But that's supposed to be him. But no cameo for a Secret Agent. The interesting, very often when we're talking about these 1930s movies, we have people stars that I don't think the general man on the street today will remember or have heard of, but we do in this movie. The lead actor is John Gielgud, which is always surprising because he made so few movies before the 1950s. I think most people that have seen him in older movies are thinking of 1953 Julius Caesar, where he played Cassius against Jane Mason and Marlon Brando, but he made only 8 movies in the 30 years before that, and this was his lead role. Apparently he wasn't happy, he wasn't comfortable in the role, and Hitchcock was a little upset because he thought that John Gielgud's discomfort showed on screen, and it's not a scene-stealing performance at all. The scene stealer is a bit over the top Peter Lorre. Now when I say over the top Peter Lorre is tended to be over the top anyway. But he's really delightful as a character known as the General, and he's the character watch. He's playing a Mexican, and I think by today's standards, people would be insulted to pass this off as a Mexican actor. But hey, it's a British movie in the 1930s, so you can get away with a lot. And Robert Young is the baby of the cast. He's only 29 in this movie, and he's the fourth lead. He's the third lead man, fourth lead character, because he'll later become better known as his father's knows best. But this shows a bit more of his versatility that he didn't get to use later in life when he was given these fatherly type roles.
And what year was it?
This is 1936. This is the movie made by Hitchcock immediately before Sabotage, last week's movie that you're showing tomorrow night, and was in the same year. So this is nestled between Sabotage, which was a big hit, and the 39 Steps, which I think you're showing in 2 weeks, which was a big hit. And this was the lesser of the three. But last week we talked about how Hitchcock, before he got into murder and mayhem, was making a lot of spy stories, and this is one of them. It's a Secret Agent, obviously. Last week's movie, Sabotage. The movie 2 weeks from now, 39 Steps. So Hitchcock is doing a lot of these espionage, spy-type movies in the 1930s. The famous scene in this, and people who watch it today may wonder why it's so famous, it takes place in the chocolate factory. And Hitchcock, love him or not, and I love him, he always looked for unusual scenes, and the movie you're showing tomorrow night, Sabotage, has, part of it takes place in a pet store, part of it takes place in a cinema, and here this is a spy story, basically spies looking for other spies, and it brings them into this chocolate factory, and all I can say for the chocolate workers of the world is I hope real factories aren't as loud as this one is, because the machinery is just hammering while these spies are chasing each other.
30 seconds left, Frank.
30 seconds. Hitchcock, after he saw Gielgud's performance, said, "You can't root for a hero who doesn't want to be one." I don't know if I agree with that or not, but I'll leave you on that note.
Thank you, Frank Dello Stritto. Talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week. Bye.
All right. And the views and opinions on visual radio, those of the host, that's me. My guests, Frank Dello Stritto, Johnny Byers, not necessarily those of the viewing audience, WinCam, the board of directors, staff, members, and all our affiliate stations, which we rattled off earlier. I got 33 seconds left. Don't you love it? Next week, we have got the return of Matt Gallagher, as I said earlier, and he's going to be bringing with him Roy Scranton. They were both on the front lines. They've got a new book, Fire and Forget, short stories from the Long War. We look forward to it. Tomorrow night, we get Hitchcock. And in a week from tomorrow night, we've got Sabotage with Hitchcock. And that was Frank Dello Stritto. Thanks, everyone, for watching Visual Radio. Next week, we're back with Matt Gallagher and Roy Scranton. Thank you, Judy Kellerman. Good night.